Hello students, welcome back to our science class. Last time we discussed about friction force and we said that friction force is a resistant force between the contact surfaces of two objects. We also learned about the different examples of friction wherein we said that there is a friction between the tires and the road, friction between the bottom of your shoes and the ground. Another example is rubbing. By rubbing your two hands, there is a friction between your two palms. Another example is by moving a furniture. By moving a furniture, there is a friction between the surface of the furniture and the floor. Aside from that, we also learn about the factors that affect the magnitude or size of friction. For example, the weights and forces pressing on the surface, wherein we said that if the objects are heavy, there is a friction force, and if objects are light, the friction will be low. Another factor is types of contact surface, and we said that if the surface is smooth, there will be low friction, and if the surface is rough, there will be high friction. Now class, let's move on to the advantages and disadvantages of friction. Let's start with disadvantages. Let us analyze the disadvantages of friction with some examples. Our shoes wear out as we use them. Another example, it can be difficult to move things along the floor. If there is high friction, the tires of our cars wear out as we use them. Now let's move on to the advantages. Let us analyze the advantages of friction with some examples. First, we can walk or run without slipping. With friction, we can walk or run without slipping. Another example, with friction, we can hold things in our hands without dropping them. With friction, our car tires can grip the road without slipping. Class, in some activities, the friction force can be very high. This will make it difficult or slower to finish the task. So, if the friction force is lowered, it could make the task easier or faster to finish. Here are some examples where we can lower the friction force. We use engine oil or lubricant to make engine work better. We can also put lubricant on a door hinge to make the door open or close smoothly. Lubricants help make the surface smooth and lower the friction between the moving parts. Another example class is we use a forklift to carry and move heavy objects. This will help to lower the friction force between the object and the floor and make it easier to move the object. Another example is to build roads, we design and use materials that make the road smooth. This will lower the friction between the car tires and the road, so cars can move easily on smooth roads than on rough roads. Another example class is we polish the surfaces of objects to lower the friction force. For example, the surface of a slide is smooth to make it good for us to slide down. Some of our activities need high friction force. If they have little friction force, it could be dangerous. So we need to increase the friction force between the contact surfaces in some activities. Here are some examples of activities that need high friction force. The tire treads and tire pattern help increase the friction between the tires and the road. Because of this, the tire grips the road well and will lower the chances of having an accident. Another example to increase friction force is the studs on soccer boots. The studs on soccer boots help increase the friction force between the shoes and the field, so the athletes will not fall easily when they run. Another example, the brakes on a bicycle help it to slow down or stop. The brakes press on the bicycle's wheels to increase the friction force, so the bicycle will slow down or stop. And we designed the edges of a stair to be rough. This helps increase the friction force between our feet and the stairs, so it lowers the chances of slipping while walking up or down the stairs. Now, class, those are the disadvantages and advantages of friction and how to increase and lower friction. Now it's time for us to have our activities. Please open your book to page 106 and let's answer the following questions. Number 1 questions: why are there grooves around a bottle cap? Why are there grooves around a bottle cap? If you said to increase friction, then you're correct. The grooves will make the surface of the bottle cap rougher, and this will increase the friction force between the hands and the cap, making it easier to open the bottle. Number 2. Should a trolley increase or lower friction force? Why? Should a trolley increase or lower friction force? Why? If you said it should lower friction force, you're correct. A lower friction force between the wheels of a trolley and the floor will make it easier to move and carry things. For number 3, if we want to move a heavy marble table along a flat surface without using too much force, how can we lower the friction force? If we want to move a heavy marble table along a flat surface without using too much force, how can we lower the friction force? If you're thinking of using a piece of cloth, that is also correct. We can use a piece of cloth to lower the friction force between the table and the floor. We can put the cloth under the legs of the table and slowly pull it. This will make the table to move easily. Now class, turn your book to page 108. Let's read the table and answer the questions. It says here, a box was pulled with a spring scale on different surfaces. The numbers are shown in the table below. So this is the table, class, wherein we can see the magnitude of force used to move the box on different surfaces. On the first column, we can see here the surfaces. We have type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. On the second column, we can see the force used to move the box from rest. This is in Newton. So, type 1 is moved in 7 Newton, type 2 is moved in 10 Newton, type 3 is moved in 14 Newton, and type 4 is moved in 20 Newton. Now for number 1 question, which surface has the biggest friction force? Explain. Which surface has the biggest friction force? If you said it's surface type 4, then you're correct. But why? Because it has the biggest force, right? Surface type 4 because they exerted the biggest force to move the box. What about number 2? Which surface has the smallest friction force? And then explain your answer. So just look at the table. Which one has the smallest friction force? Of course, it's surface type 1 because they exerted the smallest force to move the box. Now class, for number 3, you have to draw a diagram to show the friction force and the force that the spring scale exert on the box. You should draw their spring scale, pulling a box, and then show your direction using arrows. So that's it for our activity. Now for your homework, you will be making an experiment. You can find this on page 103. So it says here, do this experiment in pairs, but I guess you can do this alone, then answer the questions. So we have here 3 steps to follow. For step 1, use your 2 hands to hold a 1-liter bottle filled with water and then lift the bottle. Step 2, rub your hands with soap and then try to lift the bottle again. Compare how the bottle feels in step 2 to step 1. Record the data. Step 3, rub chalk powder on your hands and then try to lift the bottle again. compare how the bottle feels in step 3 to step 1 and step 2. Record the data. Now I have prepared a Thai translation for you. Now, if you're done making all those 3 steps, you have to record your data here. Okay? Now that's all for today. Please, if you're done with your activities and homework, take a photo and send it to the line group. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day and goodbye.